Looking around for my coffee. I've got all these empty bottles. I've got empty cups here. It must be football season because I got a lot of empty caffeine bottles around this place.
Rob Brown here with you on this Thursday morning. We got Coach Matt Dean with us, John Hartwell, Gary Harris, Brendan Martin, our executive producer in Ocala, Florida. Folks, there's a lot happening college football. One thing I've been getting a lot of people texting me on, and that is all these rules changes in the 24 season, how they're affecting the game. I know I talked with Matt, his son's on the staff, Dan Lanning out at Oregon. He's going to add some, flavor to this thing, but there have been some changes. The timeouts, the offsides, officials, is it hyper officiating? Hell, it's going to affect some games. And I also want to know, can you continue to go to 10-minute quarters without stopping the clock? That happened in the Alabama A&M game, and Doug Dean made a good point. Is that going to affect betting lines? So a lot to talk about. Smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on your Android and iPhone. And we're here with you. We got a lot to cover, all 16 SEC teams. So smash and subscribe to Sidelines. You see the QR code or Buddy Martin Show, whatever.
We got them both. We got them both in here. Watch this. I do a little trick, and it goes.
Because watch them all.
Oh, look at that. See?
Well, we're on in the morning and then Buddies at night. I love that Buddy Martin
17 hours a day we're on, or week that they bring for all of us in the SECU channel and the SECU family, everybody.
So that's 85 hours a week. No, not that much content. But anyway, watch it all. There's a lot happening in college football right now. You're going to get a ton of comments. Like I say, do us in the morning, 8 a.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Do Buddy Martin, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern in the evening. You will love it. It's a lot of stuff, and our man Brendan is making it all happen. He ain't behind the scenes. He's out front. So, hey, get pen and paper handy. A lot of note-taking. Class begins in 45 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, John Hartwell will join us here in a minute. But Matt, let's get going. And I know at some point Brendan's going to play. He had a couple of conversations last night at the Touchdown Club in Ocala with Chris Doring, Florida Gator, also on the SEC Network, about play calling and all the stuff going on.
Yeah, let's tease it for later. We'll tease it. We'll tease it for later in the show.
It's going to come up now. It's good stuff. I saw it last night.
Oh, no, this is a different one. This is just for you, Rob. This is exclusive for the Rob Brown Sidelines show. The other one was for Buddy Martin. It's a whole different thing.
Okay,
I got an exclusive interview just for you. You didn't see it. No one's seen it.
I watched it last night.
Oh, that's just Buddy. I'm telling you, I pulled him afterwards and did a separate interview just for Sidelines, separate from that interview.
And by the way, he's living proof of why we need walk-ons in college football, Matt Dean. I can't stand this thought of not having walk-ons. They're great stories, and every scout team, walk-on guy, every All-American, every star player will tell you how much they mean to the team. Matt, look, from week one, I don't like that week zero. I don't drink Coke Zero either. I drink Mexican Cokes with pure cane sugar. Okay?
Hell yeah.
They're much better.
They are better.
They are. They taste better. So now, look, this is what I love. Matt, let's get your takeaway. The new rules changes in college football. Shed some light on this.
Well, guys, it's great to be around the table. I only get to see you guys once a week, but just know I've been watching some of your content, and let's just say there's a lot to talk about right now. Fair statement. So let's go first I want to do two things here. I want to talk about some of the rule changes, and then Brendan, I want to have a little bit of dialogue on you and some of my thoughts on the Florida Miami game. I know we've beaten it to a horse, but I have a couple of things.
No. The title of the show today is from the AD's perspective. We want to know what you all think and how it, because I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first thing I'll talk about is some of the things that, our listeners may know that my son works on the Oregon staff, and obviously Oregon moved the football all day, but had some issues scoring points. But a win is a win, and the great thing about week 1 and not week 0, whatever you want to call it, is you now have videotape, and you get a chance to see what you did wrong and correct it in practice. And the better coaches do that. I'll give a great example last year quickly. Alabama against USF. Remember that, guys? I think it was a 17-10 final, week 2 maybe. Maybe the quarterback controversy was, they didn't play Milroy, I don't believe, that game. But you know what?
He was suspended.
That as a learning moment, and he took that very, very lethargic, below average Alabama performance against USF, and his team skyrocketed after that, in my opinion only. But let's go to some of the rule changes. First thing, which I think is significant, and I think if you have a really good quarterback, this helps, but you now have the communication in the headset, just like the NFL, till 15 seconds left on the play clock. Why is that important? 2 thoughts. Number 1, when you go into a hostile environment, your quarterback now is a little bit more relaxed in getting the communication to his teammates because he's got direct contact in that helmet with his offensive coordinator. That's huge, okay? Secondly, this happened in the Oregon game 2 times. It cost them drives. There's an emphasis on line of scrimmage and making sure players are actually tackles primarily are lined up on the line of scrimmage. You see this all the time. It bothers fans.
Yeah.
I remember a couple years ago, George had this massive tackle. It always looked like he was in the backfield. Well, you know what? They're calling it now. My only concern about it is I think consistency of that rule across the board, you're going to see some crews that do a great job of it. They penalized Oregon twice in the first half on it. In other games, you're going to be like, well, why aren't they calling it? So it's one of those things. And then finally, the thing I really like, I like the 2-minute warning. I know it's an NFL field, but it's an extra timeout. And therefore, you got to be able to finish games at 4 minutes, all right? Even if I burn the timeout and I got to get a stop to get back on the field to win the football game, I get that 2-minute warning. So now I'm in a chance maybe to get the ball back, whereas before we've been with less than a minute. And the last thing I want to say, and specifically to Brendan, because I feel your pain, brother, the thing we don't talk about enough in coaching, one of the biggest intangibles is knowing how to win. And let me give you a great example. That first Miami touchdown drive, you guys, Brendan, should have been off the field 3-0, even though it was 11-play, 84-yard drive. That touchdown to McCormick never should have happened. No. That late hit on the quarterback, okay, I'm sorry, that's coaching. Another thing, it's 10-3, it's 4th and 5 at the Miami 42. You know what I'd have done? Roll it to the front. I would have tried to draw them offsides hard count. Worst case scenario, I take a delay game. I put the football inside the 10. I make Cam Ward go 90 yards. Instead, we don't get it. We kind of panic with the play call. Next play, Brendan, you know what happened? Another stupid 15 penalties on a late hit. Should have been 2nd and 10. Now it's 1st and 10 inside the Florida zone, and that's a touchdown drive. All being said, I thought when Montrell Johnson Jr. went 71 yards, that place was rocking. It is 17-10, 3 minutes to go in the half. You have got to get off the field with a touchdown game 1.5, and they couldn't do it. But winning is an intent. Knowing how to win is an intangible we don't discuss enough in the world of coaching.
Well, success is the choice, like that book behind me says. It really
coach
is.
It out. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. We coach it out.
Yeah.
Hi, John Hartwell. Welcome to the show.
Morning, guys. How are y'all this morning? Man, I was just sitting back. I was being part of the audience. Matt Dean was on a heater this morning.
I know. I like it.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. John, I mean, look, you're down there at ULM, and this is kind of Thursday. We kind of get outside our comfort zone. SEC, we talk some Sun Belt, we talk college football all around the country. The rules changes, we don't want to be hyper officiated, do we?
No, but some of the new changes and everybody, a week in, 2 weeks in for a handful of teams, people are still figuring it out. And it's interesting and I know you've got a pretty good listener base in Birmingham there. We play UAB Saturday night here at 6:00. Trent Dilfer, has chosen to already kind of get into this deal. And he goes, hey, we're going to Monroe, and we don't expect our tablets to work or something to go wrong with the communication and stuff like that. So there's technology, but as always with coaches, especially in lead up to games, there's some gamesmanship going on as part of it too. And it's all part of the beauty of college football.
Well, the crowds were great. I mean, y'all got a win over Jackson State. I think college football fans, they love the games because they can focus on the games and not NIL and the portal and all this other stuff. But there's a lot of upheaval that people want to make. But what matters is, performance on the field. Look, so the rules change about timeouts, the running clocks, fewer possessions for teams. Man, is coaching now again at more of a premium than ever, Matt?
Yeah, and I kind of alluded to that in my first segment. And John, congrats on the win again, man. I'm pulling for you guys every week. I hope you know that. But coaching does matter, and I think we get lost so many times. And I talked to my son about this last night. Everybody expects Oregon, 3 in the nation, to put up 50-plus points a game. Well, I will tell you what. I watched Jason Eck from Idaho, and John, you guys may have played them when you were at Utah State. I'm not sure, but man, he's a former offensive lineman from Barry Alvarez. He just knows how to get his team to play sound, fundamental football. They only had 2 penalties for 10 yards the whole game, okay? When Oregon tried exotics like a fake punt or going for a 4th and 1, they stuffed them, okay? They had a turnover in the end zone in the first half. But honestly, my greatest basketball team I coached, I'm not lying to you guys. As a team, we shot 29.5% from 3. John, you think we saw a lot of zone? We saw a lot of zone, okay? So what you got to do is you got to say, hey, I know we have a great defense. I got kids that'll guard. We cannot turn the ball over. We cannot give people extra possessions, okay? There are ways to win when you have glaring weaknesses. And it's your job and what bugs me the most is, hey, I am who I am. I took a path. I'm very proud of my path. But I watch people getting paid a lot of money that can't make rudimentary damn decisions. And I'm just telling you, there's nothing wrong, and this comes from an Iowa guy where we make shirts to say punting is winning. There's nothing wrong sometimes with kicking the ball 40, 45 yards and saying, hey, our defense is pretty good. Let me tell you another thing. You think Mike Norvell wishes he would have taken Cam Ward over DJU in the portal? How about those type of decisions? Huh? I mean, I'm going to tell you what. Evaluation, personnel, it all matters, guys. And right now, and Brendan, you told me this a few weeks ago, and now I really believe you. Miami's front 7, they are going to create havoc. They don't have to score a ton of points to win, guys, because their defense just pins their ears back, and they go.
Yeah.
Well, what I see every week now, John, the portal, Tyler Siskey was on this show back in mid-June, and he's coached at Ole Miss and Alabama. He played at Auburn, finished at Troy, coached at St. Paul's High School down in Mobile. He made a good point. He said in the past, what separated the SEC from the other conferences was that depth, those 2 and 3 players. They were really good. They ain't sticking around like they used to. They're bolting. They're up and moving. You look at your roster at ULM. Look at rosters throughout the Sun Belt. Look around the country. Are you trying to build a team, a quick fix, a Band-Aid approach, or are you trying to build a program? We saw the great you could make a diametrically opposing argument based on what you saw last Saturday. Dabo and Clemson, Kirby at Georgia. When asked after the game to comment about what Dabo's doing, Kirby Smart said, I'm not going to do that, but I will talk about what we do. We're very selective in what we get in the portal. You got to fit us perfectly like a pair of shoes or a pair of underwear. Well, that's kind of wrong, but anyway, he said, now we do it differently, but he goes, I like to have my team. So, John, your thoughts on that? I'll hang up and listen, Coach. This is Tommy from down here in Pine Level, Alabama.
Yeah, and I think it accentuates a couple of factors that have always played a part in recruiting, but are especially important now when you have 1 or 2 year kids coming into your program. Obviously, we're talking about football, but it's regardless of the program. And two things that have to be drilled down on even further as you get into the transfer portal: character and fit. Is this kid going to be a fit for the culture that we're trying to build? And from a character standpoint, let's look at the places they've been before. Have they been able to handle adversity? What happens if somebody jumps them on the depth chart? Things like that. And we talked about it on here a couple of weeks ago about the Phil Jackson analogy in the NBA. I mean, you've got to be an X's and O's guy. You've got to be a recruiter, a player development guy, but you got to be a damn psychiatrist too, or
psychologist.
A psychologist. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, you may have to be you may have to go to a psychiatrist after you finish dealing with.
You can be both, John.
Yeah. But really, you've got to know what buttons to push on which guys and things like that. And that's why, coaching is not what it was 5 years ago. It's not what it was 15 years ago. There's so many aspects to it. And you see programs hiring chiefs of staff and all these different things. There's a purpose for those jobs because there's so much that goes into it. There's a bunch that goes into it if you're a basketball coach and you've got 13 guys. Yeah. Just take that and multiply it by 10. And it's, there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of things, a lot of stars that have to align right for you to have success on a consistent basis.
What do you think, John, about like the Billy Napier sort of scenario that we're drilling out here? And I think that's what the title of the show is today, is Inside the AD's Mind, from, this kind of a situation, which is unique. You just alluded to it, with, having to be this all around sort of superhuman, right? That does all the things from CEO to psychiatrist, psychologist, and beyond. What do you do now in this situation, which is very uncomfortable? You got like a $27 million buyout here that you're looking at. You don't have you have an interim president of the university sitting in right now because of the problems that they're having then. And you've got an AD that, he's probably maybe just as unpopular as the head coach is. They're sort of married together. So, that's about a hard, and oh, by the way, you're at Florida. So, the fishbowl. So, what's your take, John? Your perspective?
I think when you get in a situation like that, and it's interesting, not to that extent, but here in the great state of Louisiana, the last 3 days fall or 4 days fallout since LSU lost to SC, there's been somewhat the same thing on Brian Kelly. Talking about his lack of going, I guess they've lost their last 5 openers. Yeah. But when you start taking arrows from outside, and you got to understand, if you're an athletic director, if you're a coach, if you're a college president, if you don't have thick enough skin to take some arrows, you signed up for the wrong deal, because you're going to, on your best of days, just like a politician, on your best of days, you're going to have a segment that gives you, disapproval ratings. So, but to me, you can't let the storm around. You got to go back to basics. And the challenge with that is, if you go back to basics, if you don't have talent in the room enough to compete with whoever your next opponent is, you got some issues. And it's, I know I mentioned Brian Kelly. The other person, look at Florida State. Florida State, they better watch out, because they have an opportunity to go to 0-3. Because I promise you, Memphis is coming to town thinking they can beat them.
Yeah.
But you got to go back to basics. You can't totally ignore the noise, but you damn sure better not get caught up in it and try to focus on, hey, how can we salvage this thing? How can we get it pointed in the right direction? And obviously, when you take a hard right hook like the Gators did from the Hurricanes on Saturday. You either stay down on the ground or you better get yourself back up and get ready to go again.
Yeah, and you're going to be under a lot of scrutiny, but I mean, you look at the similarities. You've got a former president at Florida, Brendan, am I correct, who's now the interim president?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened at Auburn. When you had Jay Gouge, who was the president, they got rid of Ivan the Terrible, Stephen Leith, after 23 months, 6 days, 9 hours, 12 minutes, and 7 seconds. God, it was awful. The $100 million mistake. You brought Gouge back as an interim. Then he became permanent. And during that time, you had a power struggle when they tried to force Gus out, put in Kevin Steele, who I think would have been a great coach. Alan Green had a hissy fit and went to the president and said, well, I've got to hire the coach. He goes and hires Brian Harsin. Disaster. Mayday. You better get this one right because, John, you and Matt, you know this, the $21 million payout that you've got to do for House, how much cash you got laying around. Now, Brendan sent me a text the other night about the Gator cash. It's you mentioned a number. I'll let you throw that number out for verification purposes, but I think
well, it was just, you've got a network of other journalists and reporters who are out there.
Yeah.
They're scratching around. A lot of this stuff's in, public information if you look for it. This is about, and it's all speculative, but somewhere around $86 million we think is probably sitting around, hanging out somewhere. But, the reality is we all know that's not a ton of money for a place like Florida. The current, let's see, the guy that the president's being investigated is being investigated because he was giving out jobs left, right, and sideways in Washington, I guess, for jobs worth like $40K a year for like $100,000. So there's a lot of spending, lots of money, and lots of non-oversight and all these things. You guys know way more about that I do. I just think that. There's a lot of interesting things here, Matt. Like you've got, Billy with his investigation with the Rashada deal. The lawsuit there. Then you could almost timeline. Rob, you could almost timeline what Billy's done since he's been there because he's had these sort of very distinct events that have sort of occurred that have led to today, right? And this is where I want to. My question is driving to here, Matt. What do you do when your coach comes out and says something about, it's so tone deaf. I mean, that you literally get the basement of the houses in Florida wrong. Like that comment couldn't have been so wrong. And it was directed at two things. You got A, the media, and then B, the fan, because he called out social media. So it was like the worst comment I think you could come up with. Man, after that loss, what's that meeting like, Matt? Like, what's that? What do you say? Do you get when that door closes?
Well, and I'll throw another caveat on there, Brendan. After the game, your staffer for recruiting put all your visitors right by the Miami exit, so they're talking to them. And then you got social media film of like, hey, don't go to Florida, come to you, right? And then they have to deal with that crap that should not even be an issue. You put those people on your sideline, right? John knows this better than I do because he's been in some pretty high-level places. But for us, we try to educate our coaches on the front end of how to handle the media. And we don't have the same type of media presence, obviously, that John's teams do or the University of Florida Miami does. But when you see Billy's responses, like he was fighting with that damn water bottle on the presser too.
Yeah.
It's just like,
who won?
He obviously built a resume that was good enough to get hired at a high-level job. And I have all the respect in the world for that. John and I have both hired and fired coaches. John longer than me because I've only been an AD for 3 years. But I've been involved in a lot of conversations. And I'll tell you this, when you make a football hire at the SEC, you better be sure as an AD because now Strickland's tied with Napier. And we're not just talking about a coach now, Brennan.
It's very dramatic.
a couple of points when you go back to how Billy responded. I mean, it's communications, it's personal relationships 101. Hey, when you screw up, own it. Because
Yeah.
if you try to deflect it, all that's
Yeah.
going to do is magnify it that much worse. And oh, by the way, whenever you get into, pardon my language here, a pissing match with the media, you're never going to win because they're always going to have the final word. So just not very smart about how to go about it.
Right.
You know, I have a ton of respect for Scott Strickland. He's been in the business for a long time. Has been around some really talented people. I know it's a tough situation, but I want to give this angle of it. You know, you say, oh, $27 million, whatever that number is. And the immediate response from a lot of people is, we can't afford to do that. But if you look at it from a more savvy business perspective and say, okay, if we don't do anything, what is the financial impact going to be over the next 2 or 3 years? You
Correct.
can't get caught up in what it is today. Because if you analyze it, and I'm not saying this situation is to that point, but if you analyze it enough, you may come to the conclusion we can't afford not to do it. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. And it's not merely ticket revenue. It's all the ancillary things around that. If people get upset with the direction the program's going and the apathy around the program, and they stop buying tickets, then they stop buying concessions. They stop buying merchandise. They stop giving philanthropically to the university and to the athletic department. You know, you don't go to as high level bowls. So does that impact some of your revenue? There is a whole trickle down effect of this that has to be analyzed when making decisions like this.
Well, that's fascinating too. Sorry, Rob. I'm just saying I'm so close to this scenario. Obviously, I'm a huge Gator fan, so it's hard. This is a decade. I talked about this with Chris Doring yesterday. We had caught up with him for the quarterback club. We just talked about, you know, like to see former Gator greats come out and say some of the things that they're saying, because they hear everything, right? They hear all the stuff, and it's just like it's frightening to think that it's sort of in this sort of free fall, because it's in free fall, because all the people that I know that are like my canaries in the coal mines, right? They're all dead, right? Like, it's time to get the F out, man. Like, the cave is like, you got to go, pull the chute, red, yellow, get out, jump. Like, it's time, because I don't think, like you said, John, that he had ever that mindset, that psychological mindset that come in that to really, really take on this massive project. A la Urban Meyer, by the way, is a psych major, also married to a psych person who helped that. But I just think that was an interesting thing you said, you know, and Matt, what you both had said about the perspective of what it's like, you know, as far as the money, the 27 million, can you not afford it? Well, look, you can't afford 3 more bad years, in a sense of because if you start now, what are you, 2 years minimum before, you know, you hope 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, where you're going to start getting 7 and 8 win seasons again?
Well, I think looking at the past, John and Matt, Brendan, you look at coaches, how long does it take to win at Alabama? How long does it take to win at LSU and Auburn? Those coaches win the first or second year. I mean, here's my deal. I hang around a lot of really smart people. I work with them. I'm around them. Elite people. You want to be good at anything, train with people that are better than you. It'll just make you better. But as an AD, I like that question from Blind Squirrel Sports. Matt and John, what are the most important character traits that you look for in potential coaching candidates? I know, John, you've got to be with your personal trainer, all 17 teams, coaches and stuff here in a minute, but start with you first, because I know you got to get going early, and then I want Matt's comment on that. And Gary Harris will be checking in a minute, tied 100.9. We're going to get into the SEC, all 16, but there's got to be a checklist that you look at.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you know, you've got the basics, X's and O's knowledge, recruiting abilities. To me, you know, your personal skills and your communication skills, all of which, if those are a positive and they're good, you know, they serve you well in everything else you do. And again, fit. You know, there are certain people that have flair and flash that probably wouldn't be a good fit in Monroe, Louisiana, but they're going to be a good fit in LA or New York or Chicago or places like that. So I think fit is important. But again, this goes back to the CEO role. You've got to drill down in that interview process, especially in football or, basketball, sports where you have multiple coaches. Talk to me about your staff. Talk to me about who you're going to hire, because if you don't do some drill down in that, and you've got staffs coming and going, and I'll give you two examples. One is with, the Florida situation. It raises a red flag to everybody when your chief of staff leaves, right on the eve of the season starting. And I know he was at Texas A&M, came to Florida, and now he's popped to Georgia. You look at that, or you look at Penny Hardaway, and obviously there's some other periphery things going on there, but his whole staff is gone as of yesterday. That raises a huge red flag, but it goes back to, hey, how did they go about hiring their staff? What was the thought process? Are these people that you can trust, that can communicate, that are going to do the things you need to motivate your student athletes and are going to represent your university well? And if you can't unequivocally answer all of those, yes, check, I don't care who they're tied to from a recruiting standpoint or who they say they're going to bring. If they can't do those things, they may be a one-hit wonder on the front end and bring Johnny 5-star recruit in, but over a period of time, that is not going to be a formula for success.
I would agree with that. And you've got to also hire people. You've got to vet them. You see coaches and presidents at universities sometimes. How did the board of trustees hire this guy? I mean, how did you do it? You've been at Troy. You've been at some good places. I mean, you got it. Look, we had Ellis Johnson, Coach Johnson, on the show Monday, and he likes you. He doesn't know you, but he knows a lot about you. And he had said, you were in a search a few years ago at a school where he was. And he was going, God, I wanted that guy to be 80, because he's a fellow Citadel graduate. And also there's a trust factor between y'all, your honor code, and I think that's a great stuff. Gary Harris is going to jump in here with us from Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. Look, man, Gary, this is, we're talking about what do you look for in coaching candidates and all like that. And do you give coaches, Brendan alluded to, 2 or 3 years to win? I mean, coaches at Auburn and Alabama, find me the last one who in his first or second year didn't have a winning season. And in the second year, you look at Nick Saban, look at Tommy Tuberville, look at Terry Bowden, inherited a program going on probation. That's a good question in a state with 5 million people, Alabama, compared to Florida with over 23 million people. And I think that's why they're frustrated. But, hey, big win for Kalen DeBoer in game 1, 63-0 Saturday against Western Kentucky. And that was a damn good opponent. They play good football. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was very, very encouraged with what I saw. I mean, I think Western Kentucky is a pretty good team. I mean, last year they were a bowl team. They picked to finish second in their league. Brought in TJ Finley at quarterback. Obviously, they lost a really good quarterback, but had a lot of, guys back. And I thought came in here with an idea of making it a competitive game. And Alabama made a lot of big plays, as we know. I don't know that I've ever been a part of a game when the first half where one team ran 20 plays, another team ran 51 plays, and the team that ran 20 plays had 360 yards offense, and the team that ran 51 plays had 100 and something yards of offense, and the team that ran 20 plays was up 42-0. And then this week I've heard a lot of analysts talking about, well, I want to see Alabama going, some sustained drives. Well, yeah, I get that, but what are you going to have a guy do? Fall down so he doesn't score? I mean,
I agree.
When you have a chance to make an explosive play, you make it. So, but I thought there was enough mistakes that it's like you win 63-0. You go for 600 yards of offense, have a ton of explosive plays defensively. Get a couple of interceptions, harass the quarterback. In the second half, Western Kentucky did nothing on offense. Now, they did have a 21-play drive in the first half. And that's where a lot of that time of possession and the number of plays came into, but they didn't get any points out of it. But there was enough that didn't go right that I think really they had some coaching points for this week. And I think they'll gear toward this game, even though this coaching staff wasn't here. Most of them weren't. And a lot of the players, some of the players that were on that team aren't here anymore, but a lot of them are. I think this is one of those cases where even though Alabama won the game last year, that the players that were down there in Tampa feel like they've got something to prove. So it's a good situation in that you won the game, but I think that a lot of the players were embarrassed by the performance. So I think they'll have plenty of incentive this week against South Florida. And if they take the proper steps and go from week 1 to week 2 and improve, they should have another one-sided victory, although I don't think it'll be quite as lopsided as this one was when you consider South Florida's got 17 starters back, plus both their specialists.
Matt, you and John both you heard that. I watched a lot of that game Saturday. I'll throw this one to you, Matt. The power of the peninsula. That's going to be a great test for Alabama to go play at Wisconsin. I mean, I do. And Matt, you know Big Ten football really well.
Yeah, but the Tide are built for Big Ten football, ACC football.
I think they're built for anything.
Football, man. When you got line of scrimmage play and you can turn around and run the football, and anytime you do an RPO, you got a quarterback can go 80 yards. I mean, Gary's exactly right. I mean, that's an incredible stat. I think Wisconsin, I watched some of their game. I believe it was Western Michigan or Central, one of the Michigans, not the U, but they were 21-14 in the fourth quarter. I just
Western
think
Michigan,
Wisconsin doesn't have the skill that Bama has. Historically, they've always had great offensive line play. So because of their crowd, maybe they can hang in there 2.5, 3 quarters. But, yeah, after week 1, that's not going to be a game, in my opinion. I'm not, you got to take it one at a time. It's on the USF if you're Alabama. You're not even thinking about Wisconsin right now, obviously. But getting back to your point about what I look for in a head coach and why I think so many head coaches are recycled is I'm always looking for someone that has accountability. Because in adversity, when you go to that locker room or you go to that media podium and you get your tail whipped, I'm looking for someone who's going to stand there and say, hey, this is on me. Me and my staff need a better job of getting these young men ready to play. Next question. Yeah. And you know what? A lot of people that have been head coaches and lose their job and show that and show respect to players and still win the locker room, we always give people we talk about the recycled head coach, right? And why does that happen? Well, because there's a trust factor. I know that person I just hired has done it somewhere pretty well, and for whatever reason, it didn't go the way they had hoped. Maybe it goes better at my place. When you hire an assistant coach that has never been a head coach, that was me at one point in my career, man, that first year inside, your stomach is turning, boys. I'm just telling you, it is the hardest thing. And, like I look at John's recent women's basketball hire. She did it at all levels, and John knew she was a winner. And if I can get me winners in the room that bring in other winners that follow them and learn underneath them, I got a greater chance to become a winner.
Yeah. John, I know you got to go. Let us hear your closing comments, and then, Gary, I'll go back to you. But I agree with Matt.
Yeah. Hey, one thing, Gary, and I know Kalen's gotten a lot of positive publicity off of this, but it's just who he is. I was fortunate enough to get to spend a little time with him when I was the AD at Utah State, and he was at Fresno. But the deal he did with the kid this past week, who has a terminal illness, that was unbelievable. His players did a great job, and kudos to him. I think one of the things he's done, and obviously have a ton of respect for Saban and what he's done, but Nick came across a little bit stoic to a lot of folks. I think Kalen being more accessible and being himself, whoever his PR director is, if you will, has done a great job in that, but he's going to have success there. Absolutely. Yeah. Got to run here in a second, Rob. A couple of things. Big game for us Saturday, have UAB here at home, 6 p.m. here in Monroe. A lot of folks know this. Our head coach, Bryant Vincent, was the interim for a year at UAB, went 7-6, was involved in the search. Mark Ingram chose to go with Trent Dilfer. So there, we have 16 guys who are on our staff who either played and or coached at UAB. So it's going to be quite the interesting game. As I said, Trent's had several comments in the media talking about some of those relationships in the game. So we're excited about the opportunity. ULMWarhawks.com or John_Hartwell on X. As always, appreciate the opportunity to visit with you guys and have another great weekend of college football.
Will do, man. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Gary, you heard that. I saw that with Kalen DeBoer. And also Nick Saban. Yeah, he's kind of quiet, whatever. But I understand his mother passed away here in the last few days. I know he was supposed to speak at the Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club. So, I didn't know she was still living. But I know he lost his dad when his dad was only 46. But man, what he's done just for the Catholic Student Center in Tuscaloosa and Nick's kids and all this other stuff, when you see these coaches step out and give back and want to help others, that does really endear them to fans, not just of that school, but of all schools, Gary. And
yeah,
I would have you as my PR guy. Gosh damn, you get it. You were Matt or John.
Well, first on Coach Saban and Miss Terry through Nick's kids, it's I want to say it's right around $15 million now that they've raised for deserving organizations and charities. The Habitat for Humanity house projects that they've done. So much that he did. I think the difference is kind of what John alluded to, is that they're both going to, Coach Saban did a ton and Coach DeBoer's going to do a ton. Personality-wise, it's a little bit different, in terms of the openness that Coach DeBoer has. With Coach Saban, it was a little more closed ranks type of thing. And even the events that were, for really good causes were, closely monitored as far as your access to coach and things like that. With Coach DeBoer, it is more of a just, hey, how you doing type of thing. And although I will say this, I saw Coach Saban in the press box before the game last week, and he was, you could tell it's a different mindset now that he's retired. I mean, he made the rounds in the press box, shaking hands, laughing, cutting jokes. Ryan Fowler and I talked with him for a couple of minutes, and I said, you hustled to get on back here. He said, hey man, we don't stay for the game. He said, I was back in Tuscaloosa at 1:30 in the afternoon. He finished up game day in College Station, got on a plane, and was back in Tuscaloosa. So we're seeing more of his personality without the stress of coaching. But I think what makes Coach DeBoer unique, and John kind of alluded to it, is that he seems to be the same person all the time, whether it's coaching or it's an event or you're just talking with him in a conversation. And I think that he engages people in a way that is very genuine, so that when he's talking to you, regardless of whether you're a high-level executive or a network television personality or a local TV or radio personality or a person that he runs into in a convenience store, I think his approach and how he deals with people is consistent across the board. And I think that's rare. I think most of us, a lot of times, we try to do the best we can, but I think a lot of times the way that we engage with people has a lot to do with, where they fall in the social stratification ladder, Yeah. And with Coach DeBoer, I don't sense that at all. I don't sense that he treats the president of the university any differently than he would treat anybody else. And I think that's unique. And as far as Will Susanna, what a heart. I posted it on my socials, of course, and I just said, if you haven't seen this, you need to watch it. And if you have seen it, you need to watch it again. That little girl just, that was, I was special. Oh,
it is. And I got 4 kids. I love them more than anything in the world. And you see that, and Matt, you've got to see this, just because there are coaches out there and these players too. It's frustrating because some of the comments you hear about players, because the NIL and the portal, most of them are great kids. And Gary, you know that, Matt, and you know that, Gary. Y'all, and right after this show, do yourself a favor. Go to Tide, put the Tide 100.9 app on your phone and watch Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr, our friend who's on Tuesdays from Tider Insider. But these guys get it, okay? They're going to come down when they need to come down, but they're going to tell you what's going on. The local beat writers, day in and day out, they find those stories. Some guy flies in from out of town. Oh, wow. he doesn't get those stories. Matt, your thoughts on what Gary just said about Nick Saban? I think it's really cool because he's going to be a voice on the college football arena for a long time. I mean, it looks like he's got pretty good genes.
No, I had a chance on social media, Gary. It may have been a repost. I follow you, but I saw the segment you were referring to, and it was pretty. I mean, it's very touching, and those moments, and they happen in a lot of programs in the country when you have the ability to reach out. Just being an Iowa fan, I know the first quarter wave is a pretty special deal that visiting teams even participated, right? With the way the University of Children's Iowa Hospital is just elevated over the stadium, and they're actually watching the game and they're waving to the players and kids and vice versa. I was actually, true fact, I didn't know it at the time, but back when Wyoming had Josh Allen at quarterback, I was at the Iowa-Wyoming game, and at the end of the first quarter, this is the very first time they started this, and I was talking to my buddy. I'm like, wow, this is interesting, and then it has just grown. But the thing about Kalen DeBoer that I really like is Gary kind of described it really well, but it just seems like he could be in your living room, he could be in the press box, he could be at the sideline. He doesn't seem to get too rattled, Gary. I mean, I think he's pretty locked in, but it's not like he lives in a silo either. You know what I'm saying? I will say this about Saban, man. I thoroughly enjoyed him on game day. And maybe it's because I've never seen that side of Coach Saban, but man, he had a couple one-liners. And a little bit of it was a dig, with like, I don't care if you have a $20 million NIL budget. If you don't get the right dudes, you ain't worth a blank, right? So and he's true, 100% true. And I just really enjoy him. I hope he continues to do it throughout the years. But, the great thing about Coach is he took that wheels up, got back to Tuscaloosa. He was in the press box, high-fiving Gary. That's who he is. I mean, I think people don't realize, his roots too. I mean, he worked very, very hard. I think we talked about this last week. I didn't realize he coached Matt Eberflus at Toledo, and I'm a big Chicago Bears fan and pulling for them. And just the way he stays connected with his former players, he doesn't need any post about that. He just does it. His players love him. They come back. He goes to see them. Just really special.
It is, Gary, and again, we need these stories about that getting out for college football. And you do a great job. Like I said, Ellis Johnson on your show right after this, he'll be breaking down the weekend's games. We had Coach on Monday, man. I've had so many people go, I just like listening to his voice. He just puts me at ease. He's got a little bit of a Southern accent.
He's got that smooth Southern gentleman accent.
He really does.
And he says Citadel roots, and I've gotten to know Coach Johnson pretty well. Knew him, first met him obviously when he was coaching here with Mike DuBose, and kind of forged a relationship with him. But you were able to get him on. He is so good because.
Thank you, by the way.
He shoots straight. I mean, he has no reason not to. He's not coaching anymore.
He doesn't hold back.
But as you said, it's just kind of a smooth delivery, and he's very objective, I think, in his approach and his analysis, which makes him fun to have on because he's coached in so many places. But I don't think when he's picking it, when he's looking at a game, he's not looking at it from, well, I spent time at this school or that school or this school. This is just what I think. And but he's been a good guest to have on. But getting back to Coach Saban, what Matt was talking about with how good he is on TV, and I think that's what we're seeing now is that when he was coaching, the singular focus, the drive is just it's an intensity that very few people have. And you mentioned how hard he worked. He tells a story, everybody, you wouldn't believe it. But when the money started going crazy with coaches, and he was the reason for it, he said, "You know what? I worked just as hard when I was making $6,000 a year, as I do now. It's got I don't do it for the money. I don't let and I believe that. Some coaches,
that was obvious.
And I think that's his biggest gift. But now that he's out of it, man, we are seeing he can be funny. He can have one-liners. And as a media person, like I said, now that I'm not having to cover him. And that guard is down. I mean, when he was in the press box the other day, it was just fun. Just talking with him, watching him make the rounds, and just be as relaxed as he was. So, I think he's Now, again, never say never because he's a young 72, and I don't know what might happen in the future. I don't think he's going to coach again, but I think he's enjoying this aspect of his life. And there, I'm looking. I guess somebody posted a video. I'm looking at McAfee and Coach Saban. You see the differences in their personality.
It almost looks like Coach Saban is looking at him like doing
What
a
are you
psych
doing?
evaluation. I think he's a Section 8, okay?
What are you doing? All right, guys. Well, listen, I got to bug out just a little bit early because I've got to get across to the other studio and get some stuff.
Tell them how they
situated.
can follow you.
Yeah, on Twitter, it's at Gary Harris _WVUA. And on my Gary Harris WVUA 23 Facebook page, I have been posting a ton of content.
You do.
Love for people to follow me there. Gary Harris, just go on Facebook and search Gary Harris WVUA 23. Give me a follow. And, I got my radio show coming up on Tide 100.9 at 9 a.m. and on WVUA 23. So check out those websites. And I'll, of course, be back with you next Thursday. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'll be listening. Thank you. You're what makes the show special. Appreciate it. Gary Harris, guys. Hey,
All right,
Brendan,
so I
you
have the
cool-
interview loaded up if you want.
Okay.
Rob.
Yeah, I want to hear this. This is Chris Doring, folks.
Yeah, Chris Doring from the Quarterback Club last night at in Ocala, Florida. So here you go. Okay, standing here with Chris Doring, one of my good friends, and somebody that has been vocal early, I think, this summer, where you were sort of, I think, set sort of some of the trend with, you thought that after a practice, I think you went to that Florida looked a little, like they were a little more prepared. Yeah. You said, I think, 7 wins or something like that.
Yeah, I thought they looked better in the spring, having a chance to be out in practice some in the summer. Looked like there were some upgrades in terms of talent and size, and I think the thing that frustrated me about Saturday was just the same issues on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball, same issues with communication errors in the secondary, a couple brutal penalties that killed the opportunities to get off the field, and so it's kind of the same thing, and that's really kind of what's most frustrating to me is a former player, the pride that we take in our university and what we did during the 90s, and just was hoping we'd turn the corner this year.
Yeah, well, I think I said that because I was at the game, and I said, about the second quarter, I really just felt like, look, I've seen this.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking.
You knew that early on. You could see the line of scrimmage getting pushed when they were running the football. It was 2-3.
When there was no conversion after the pick, I think in the first quarter, I felt like that there was just like you could, as far as getting 6 points, it was just really.
Even the long Montrell Johnson run was not anything that Florida did. It was a misfit by the safety that came down, tried to duck inside instead of setting the edge, and you get 71 yards on the ground there that you take that away and you're averaging about 2.5 yards a carry for the rest of the day.
Yeah. A lot of knock I think I've been talking about since I saw Utah last year was, and everyone's talking about this, Billy didn't get an offensive coordinator this year. How much is that you feel like really plays out in the scheming, or does it?
Well, honestly, I know that they brought in somebody to help with the offense, and I've heard rumors that somebody else was calling the plays on Saturday. I don't know what the truth is to that, but what I see is unfortunately kind of a lack of attention to detail. I don't know if it's in the teaching or just the execution, but the bottom line is the coach's job is to get guys that'll play the way that they're coached to play, and that right now they're either being coached poorly or they're just not paying attention to the details that are necessary to win football games.
Yeah, and finally, I, as a player, you mentioned a minute ago as a player how it felt. As a player looking up as the place you helped build, you did. Yeah. And, as even a hero of mine as a kid, I know we're close in age. I'm just saying that, looking up, I know that's a sting because I know how much that means to you all, to your, your class and all those guys. How hard is that sometimes as a media member, as everything else, especially, and it's not just about Billy. I'm talking, a decade of some of this, but to feel this at the end, how bad does it sting now? Because of what the future.
I think the hardest part about it is we have been walking through this desert for, you take away the. Yeah, I don't think those appearances in the SEC Championship back under the McElwain years were a reflection of the program being good. It was a reflection of how down the East was in those seasons. And then we get the 1 year with Trask. that was like, I think what we had with Trask and Pitts and Tony kind of overshadowed what was already an eroding group of talent. And so, it used to be that first Saturday in December was always penciled in on the Gators schedule for being in Atlanta, and just haven't had that opportunity much. And so I think it's disappointing, and I felt like this was the year that we were going to maybe start climbing back into more competitive situations in the conference and nationally, and it doesn't feel that way now. I think, we were talking about the season feeling like it was over, and we weren't even at Labor Day yet.
That's the same conversation I was having.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing that really has me feeling the most despondent right now. It's just, what are we cheering for at this point? What do we have to look forward to?
Great stuff, and I mean, everything he said, you like it, Brendan. That was a great interview with Chris.
I thought that was fascinating when he said, someone else was calling the plays. Like, talking about the rumors that I don't know who, I mean, wow. I mean, that guy knows what he's talking about, by the way. We obviously, SEC Network, and former Gator great. I mean, he lives in Gainesville, has a mortgage company in Gainesville. I mean, for him to say that is something. I mean, what do you got? What is your take on that, Rob, Matt? Like, what do you think about that?
You know what I think? I think the truest thing he said was those appearances in the SEC championship game by Old Yeller, as Franz Beard calls him, Jim McElwain, were not necessarily a reflection of how strong the program was. It was more likely how bad the East was, how weak it was. And you have to be able to read in depth what's really going on. And you look at programs, money alone, if money can solve it, it's not really a problem.
Sure.
And that's the thing. You got to have the right people. But Matt, your take on that?
Yeah,
but
Matt, what do you think of you now you got that's disarray. That's a problem. That's a thing. When if you got your former guy who's a representative out there for your program, walk on, has all the great story of all time. And who was the guy that came out early that really changed the narrative if the Gators were going to be good this year? Because he said they were going to win 7-8 games.
Great content. I think for me watching it, if I'd have heard that in the radio, let's say, it'd been different, but you could see the pain in Chris's face. Even though he was real classy, he was trying to be very professional. He's the one guy on the SEC network and TV station I love when he breaks down a game. Doesn't matter if it's a horror game, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that he came out this summer and went to a practice, Brendan, and said, hey, it looks like maybe we got more things going here. We're 7-8 win team. I do think, underlying, going back to my very first point about the intangibles of knowing how to win. He mentioned it. Those two plays we couldn't get off the field, right? Yeah. And even the fact that Johnson's big game was a breakdown in their defense. He just knows his stuff. And, man, I guess because I've been an Iowa fan, Brendan, I have my own set of problems. But, I didn't realize.
Group therapy here, my friend.
I like you. I love
how
Iowa.
long it's been, in terms of your prominence, because I was watching the Swamp Kings this summer on Netflix, and I was doing some other things. You go back to Spurrier. I'm like, there's always been a swag on your sideline the last 30 years. I mean, from Spurrier, even Urban Meyer, no matter what you say. Heck, I'm not trying to right the ship here, but I thought Dan Mullen brought a personality. You know what I'm saying? At least, the one time he goes on there with the Darth Vader costume, whatever. I mean, right now,
I'd take me some Dan Mullen right now.
I know.
I'd take me some Dan Mullen right now, dog.
That tweet the other day about he went to 3 New Year's 6 bowls his first 3 years. And again, someone texted me and said, hey, man, we don't want to have the Billy Napier death watch. It's not. It's more what it is it's about all coaches. I mean, you can apply this to a lot of schools. But what I saw, you're right, with Chris Doering, this is a kid who probably walked and sold Cokes and programs to Gator games growing up. And you find kids like that at all these schools. Remember Bobby Humphrey, great running back at Alabama, used to sell Cokes at Legion Field growing up in Birmingham, had a hell of a career at Alabama, and then his son Marlon was a hell of a defensive back on the national championship team in 2015. But you could see, you're right, the hurt. Last year, Chris Doering, if I'm not mistaken, guys, thought the Gators would win maybe 4 games or 5 games.
No, yeah, I interviewed him almost the exact same time last year.
There you go.
A week earlier before that, and he said he thought they were not very good, and he said I don't think they're going to win 5 games.
You got to have truth brokers. I mean, there's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's the people who just drink the Kool-Aid just because they want you to like them. I ain't one of those. I don't give a damn. I'm going to tell you what I see, and if I'm wrong, I will definitely admit it.
If you're a cute chick, though, I'm probably going to be nice, though. I'm just going
to exactly. Well, I'm not.
I'm going to put that out there.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing, guys. Rob, I got to say one thing, and Brendan, too. Yeah. And I know this probably is an old take, and it's probably something you don't want to hear. There is a chance that Miami's a top 5 team in the country right now. I'm saying right now.
Stay healthy.
If they stay healthy, I don't know about their depth, but they made a great decision. If you had that same game, and who was the guy that's at Wisconsin now? That was Van Dyke. Was that the quarterback last year at Miami? Was that 2 years ago, whatever? Cam Ward, the difference, him alone has made that team. It's amazing. Some of the plays he made and his just pocket savvy. I saw him the last 2 years, guys.
He's the real deal, man.
He is.
I saw him. I mean, I was obviously shooting on the sideline. That little Kerwin Bell, like that little sidearm deal he's got going on there. Like that's pretty sweet. It just shows mobility and smartness and awareness on the field. It shows that you think about where your arm is in position of defensive line. I mean, that's the intangibles. Those are the uncoachable things, right, Matt? The things that it's just like they talk about the John Elway knowing the sack's coming from his blind side. You just know, right? You just have that certain extra gear.
No, you're right. Cam Ward started his career in San Antonio at Incarnate Word.
Yep.
I think he threw for 5,000 or 6,000 yards. And Brendan made a good point to me the other day. He said Miami went out, recruited him, a big boy, offensive and defensive lineman, got him a big boy quarterback. Mario Cristobal knows what a player looks like. He was at Alabama 4 years, National Recruiter of the Year twice, played at Miami from 86 to 90. He knows the lay of the land. But I tell you what was interesting, that they've only had 1 double-digit win season at Miami in the last 20 years. That's hard to believe because
year 3, right? I mean,
this is year 3.
Okay, so there's the difference. There's the difference because these 2 programs are very, very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well,
there's your year 3 difference.
Yeah, and let's switch gears. I want to ask you, Matt. You watched Texas A&M against Notre Dame. How good is Notre Dame? Texas A&M's offense was not very good. I know Ruben Owen, the running back. I think he's out. But it's who was it? Ron Higgins. Brendan was on the show Monday from down in the Shreveport Bossier Journal.
Yep.
He said the Aggie fans are the most desperate, fans because they have all this money. They have everything. It's like that guy on the sales floor. He goes, my guy, I could, if we get some more of those bonds, I could sell them. Well, you go get another $2 million block. And then he's like, my guy said he's not interested. Oh, he was 5 minutes ago. You give people everything they ask for. And 80% of the time, they still can't sell, to a troop train. Okay? Yeah. That's just the way some people are.
So you're correlating the Texas A. I'm trying to mind map you. You're correlating what happened at Texas A&M and it happened at Florida. So there's a similar.
No. I'm talking about
Jimbo.
I'm not about Florida. I mean, it's just really about Jim. Yeah, with Jimbo. Yeah, with the money, you can't guarantee somebody $75 million and expect that not to affect them. And Jimbo basically. He didn't let Petrino. I thought he would, but he didn't let Petrino call plays last year. He didn't have that freedom. Now look at Sam Pittman. He's like, man, I love Bobby Petrino. I mean, he's going to be his biggest fan other than his own children. But no, I'm just saying about A&M is that they have everything you could ask for. Their fans are incredible. I mean, they will come watch you play air and stay in the whole game.
Florida is packing 90,000 plus at like 190. And if that first game, it was as busy outside the swamp on Saturday as I've ever seen it in a long time. So John mentioned it earlier today. At what point? Because I'm telling you right now, Florida fans pissed. I mean,
yeah.
I know. Listen, I know Florida fan. I am a Florida fan. I mean, everyone's like done. Like, I want to get the pitchforks out. We're gonna go march in the streets, and we're gonna go get them. Like, it's like like it's mob mentality now, and we're reaching that point, which is going to be interesting to see how that plays. Matt, pressure from the outside, from the fans. You know how this works. How difficult of that is it to manage from your perspective when you're AD or even coach? You've done obviously both things.
Yeah, expectations are very difficult, Brendan, to internalize sometimes when you're in that spot. And you guys have made a comparison. This is year 3 for Billy. We just talked about year 3 for Mario. I'll tell you the guy I was impressed with Saturday, guys. The swag, Marcus Freeman, had the sideline. He walked out with that offensive line. They were talking to the Aggie fans there at the tunnel. He's like, you know what, guys? We're going to line up and knock the tick out of you, right? Yeah. We are going to go there and smash you. And Notre Dame looked like a playoff football team on Saturday on the road, tough environment. Hey, I was an Aggie for 4 years with my son being there. I was at the 7 overtime game when the Aggies beat LSU 74-72. It's a tough place to win at, guys. Well, I'll tell you something. The Aggie offense, let me tell you, the Aggie offense, you think you got problems with Florida offense? We go watch watch the Aggie offense right now.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say is that I wasn't trying to compare A&M and Florida on anything.
No. I think it's a good comparison with the Jimbo Fisher thing. I think it's a good – I was agreeing with you in a lot of ways.
But how about this? The guy that gave him $75 million is now the AD at Ohio State. How does that work?
Exactly. Yeah, how does that guy still have a job? He should be in the witness protection program.
I'm at Rhodes College. I could give someone $75 million. I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, well, let's go back. The Florida fans have always supported that program, and so with the A&M fans. There's 23 million people in Florida, about 30 million we know of in Texas. But I tell you what, Mike Elko, he won 9 games at Duke.
Yeah,
he's a good coach. Offensively, man, Connor Wegman. I mean, look, quarterbacks. How long does it take? Shook Jordan used to always say, "Don't wait to be great, son. Kickoffs in 5 minutes. I need you today." What are you waiting on at Texas A&M? Now they've got again everything going for them. They got look. It's a long season ahead.
Yeah,
they've gotten their loss in, but they don't want to lose another one. Looking down right now, based on what we've seen, guys, in the first week, man, Ole Miss looked really good. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State, they're going to give you everything they've got with Jeff Lebby. That's what they do. I don't think Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss, though. I think he loves it. I would look hard at Bill O'Brien, and another name that if Florida makes a change, they'll probably look at Dan Lanning. But you look at it, and I want to say, yeah, I know, because your son would be in Florida, though.
No, it would be fun.
And Brendan can hang out
together. Let's hire him.
I mean, Brendan would have
perfect.
Yeah, but Tyler, a proud graduate of Christian Brothers High School, mentored by brother Joel S. McGraw, Fratre School Arm.
I didn't know this. Beaten with Banjo says Kiffin's ex-wife is a UF grad. I didn't know that.
Yeah, see, her dad is John Reeves, Florida Gator.
Yeah,
that's his father-in-law. See, that's what I was telling you. I'm going to tell you another one, guys. Missouri, Eli Drinkwitz. This guy, he collects shoes. He's got Missouri playing some pretty good football. Who is the best player in the SEC? Is it Luther Burden III at Missouri? This guy's really special. Someone asked earlier, Dr. Arnoff, about Oklahoma. I like this last few minutes. We're going to bounce all over the league. Oklahoma, guys. Chris Plank from the Plank Show out of Boomer Sooner Football Network was on with us. They got to play Houston this week. Guess who's coaching at Houston now, guys? Willie Fritz.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun one to watch. I'll tell you, Vanderbilt, we hadn't talked about them much. They beat Virginia Tech.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting game.
Yeah, Brendan, and guys, I thought, I'm a Hokie. I love the Hokies. Got a lot of family from there. But man, the ACC versus the SEC.
Big win for Vandy, actually. Yeah,
Big
huge win
win.
for their pro. Huge win.
Guys,
We got to
did
get
y'all
Chris
hear
Lee.
what-
Where's Chris Lee? I probably haven't talked to him this week.
I know. I got to get Chris back on, but let me ask you this for both of y'all. Clark Lee's comments in the locker room, he said, this is what we've been telling you, you guys that have been here these first 3 years about the buy-in. They've got a lot of guys in there on the portal. And by the way, we heard yesterday 84 or 94 backups played in the Tennessee game against UT Chattanooga the other day. Wow. There's you know, here it is. Bill O'Brien cost Bama the Tennessee game and a natty. He's only looking good because he's coaching the ACC. I still think Bill O'Brien is a good coach. But y'all, hey, who is the surprise? This is one we hadn't talked about a lot, is Texas goes to Michigan. Guys, y'all give me your pick. Brendan first. What is Texas doing up there in the big house? Because Michigan, I know it was their first game, but they were only up by, a touchdown in the fourth quarter against Fresno State. I think Texas goes in there and wins big Saturday. Right or wrong, Brendan?
Oh, I think it's. I don't think right now. I do they blow them out in the big house? I don't know. I watched the Gators just get their ass kicked by Miami in the swamp. So why not? Yeah. I mean, I think Michigan's in a. No, I'm not going to say that. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm not totally convinced about Texas yet. So we'll see. I think Michigan's going to be a close game. I think it's hard to travel up there. I think there's a lot. I mean, it's fun. It's even bigger than the swamp, obviously. I think Michigan gives them a good game, but I don't think it's a blowout. I think Texas wins.
Matt?
I think Texas wins 7 to 10 points, maybe 2 scores, but I agree with Brendan. I think defensively Michigan will do some things from a physicality standpoint that will give Texas problems because they still have a lot of returners on defense. I think offensively, man, Texas really like. I go Texas 27-20, 27-17.
Yeah.
Relatively low scoring.
Y'all remember years ago when Florida State went up to the big house? I took Florida State to win that one. I think they scored 52-23 or 52-17. Another one here in the SEC, South Carolina struggled with Old Dominion the other day. You look around, again, Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby, he's going to get 100 pounds out of a 30-pound sack. That's a Chuck Oliver term. I love to give him credit because he's a great show. But that's what he does. And I look also, Kentucky, they play South Carolina, guys. And I've seen a lot of comments on here from Cat Fan. Can't wait for Florida's homecoming. That's going to be, and Brendan talked about his canaries in the coal mine. Mm-hmm. Kentucky. Florida can't lose to Kentucky. When they do, they're going to be struggling. So that's going to be a must win. Hey,
I get all pissed off when you say it, Rob, because I really hate that we lost to Kentucky. I really hate
I agree with you.
And that's right then. That was my beginning of I don't know if I like this guy. And then Gator fans, it's like, well, we're rebuilding. Then we lose to Vanderbilt. And I'm like, okay, listen.
Yeah.
This sucks. We lost it. We don't lose to these teams. These are teams we don't lose to. And now we have a history of not losing to them. And now they own us. It's just that became okay in the culture. And I think that was, I don't know how that happened, but it's never been okay with me.
Well, Brendan, you're right. And Matt, weigh in on this thing. Brendan knows the pulse of the Gator Nation. And I got a pretty good read on him. I mean, growing up, Auburn, Florida, God, that was what a it got so intense when I was in college. We had to have a better relations day, and to get along. But man, what you don't want, Matt, as a coach or an AD, is fans that are apathetic. That means they've checked out. You want them even riled up when you win only by a touchdown when you should have won by 3 or 4 touchdowns. I know that sounds crazy, but the fans in this footprint, and we got Memphis fans that watch this show every day. Wow. Mike Norvell, guess who used to be the head coach at Memphis? Mike Norvell. Guess who his offensive line coach was, Matt? Ryan Silverfield, the current coach at Memphis. That's a pretty cool storyline there. Matt, I'm going to throw one at you. Georgia. Georgia has won 40 consecutive regular season games. All right. Georgia looked pretty dang good against Clemson. Again, we're going into week 2 right now. I'll close it out with this for Matt and Brendan. What are the most compelling stories, or what's the most compelling story right now in the SEC?
Honestly, I think it's really way too early. But to answer your question from my perspective, I have a couple quick thoughts. I do think Texas looks like they're built for the long haul. And I think the Michigan game gives us a really good indication nationally, not only the strength of Michigan, this is a home game for them, but like I look at what Texas did at Alabama last year. Texas is not going to be worried about going up there. And unfortunately, Brendan, I do think a story we're going to hear about every week is going to be, is Billy going to make it out of the season? And I hope things get better. The one thing I'm going to tell you that could save, in my opinion, strictly my opinion from being a former coach, DJ Lagway's a 5-star, and because of Mertz's concussion, looks like he may get the start. I don't know the scoop yet completely.
No,
Could
DJ's
a 5-star? What's that?
DJ's starting. We were reporting it all week, so it looks like DJ will be the starter.
Could a really good performance by him? I know it's against Stanford. Could that give you guys some hope and optimism as you prepare for the meat of that schedule? I don't know.
I think it should, because you've got last year at McNeese State at the same time, Florida couldn't score a touchdown.
That's right.
So I think right now when you're thirsty, anything tastes good, right?
And the final thing, Rob.
Quote of the show so far.
Final thing, Rob, is I know the LSU lost a tough game to USC, but I don't think it's fatal. I look at their schedule. I still think LSU is 10-2 overall and in the college football playoff.
Got to get those players better disciplined, though. Taking off helmets and celebrating and doing this.
It's correctable. It's correctable. Yeah. Hey, Brendan, would you rather have LSU problems right now or your own problems?
No, I'll take LSU problems. I'll take Vandy's problems right now because they're 1-0.
It's correct.
That's like saying someone saying they gotta deal with their taxes. They gotta pay a lot.
They got a really good quarterback. Rob. Nussmeier's a really good quarterback. They're going to win a lot of football games.
Hey, but Ron Higgins brought this up Monday. I love this going all over the league like this. Ron Higgins pointed it out. There wasn't a single designed run play for Garrett Nussmeier in the LSU Southern Cal game the other night. Again, there's a long season to go. And what I want to see is SEC teams be successful. I'm a conference guy. All right. So you look at Tennessee. I mean, they've got a big one against NC State Saturday in Charlotte. Vince Ferrara was on yesterday from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. Look, going I-40, the Tennessee fans, they're all over the state and all over the region. They're going to be pouring through the Smokies on I-40 to Charlotte, a 3.5-hour trip for the Vols. They'll probably ride a bus. Maybe they fly. But I think Tennessee takes over Bank America Stadium, tries to, and that's going to be a tough game. But they've got a great-looking quarterback. Hell, this SEC right now, look at it top to bottom. When Vanderbilt beats a team that a lot of people thought would be one of the better teams in the SEC, that tells you the SEC is either really strong and deep or that the ACC's not. I think the ACC's pretty good, but I think the SEC's better.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say that when Miami just came into the swamp and took them to the woodshed, right? So,
yeah, I know.
And then you lost to Florida State last year. I don't know. I think now we're seeing the parity amongst college football with the arrival of NIL and with the transfer portal, and I think we're going to continue to see this thin out. And I think whoever if you're a top tier athlete, no longer do you have to go wait to play. You can go play now wherever you want, as long as you've got a good agent. It's going to shop you around, and you can get where you want to get. So, it's just, it is what it is. And this is a much bigger sort of conversation. And we've talked about it before. So, but I just think what we're seeing now is exactly what we've been talking about. Is this parity is now starting to play out, and I think we can see more of it. Look, the South, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, like we're all connected right down here. Great athletes come from all over now. I think we'll see more of it. So I just think we're going to continue to see this trend.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can go home and get on the internet and go to a website of any school in the country, no matter where you live, and virtually be on campus and feel like you're part of that program. It's all three things now: campus, culture, coaching that attract the kids. We got NIL, we got the portal, but you know what? We got most of all, we've got fans that are passionate at all these schools. As long as you got passionate fans that care, they'll get things fixed eventually. Some places sooner than others, but a lot of great stories. You know what? You back your teams no matter what. Ultimate sign you got a great program is when the fans show up, sell out every home game, and travel on the road with you regardless of who you're playing, because first and foremost, they're coming to pull for their team, and it's about them getting better. Hey, for our executive producer, Brendan Martin, Matt Dean up at Rhodes College, John Hartwell at ULM, Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa, Tybee 100.9.
When are we going to have beers, Matt?
I'm looking forward to it, Brendan. We got to figure out.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, wow, that's always a time and place for beer.
We'll get everybody together here, Matt. You'll love Brendan. He is a trip. He's taller than Chris Goring, by the way.
We're the same height.
Yeah, 6'4", all muscle. All right, hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Support our sponsors, the great folks out there like Coolmore Logistics and Transportation in Memphis, Memphis-based with a global reach. The Vitamin Shop in Oxford and Olive Branch, Mississippi. 2 locations. Check them out. We're going to have Matt Price, one of the partners in the deal with Justin Ross, going to join us for a couple of minutes Friday morning to say hello. I'm using this prebiotic that they've got. Order from the Vitamin Shop, Oxford, Mississippi, Olive Branch, Mississippi. Tell them you heard about it on Sidelines. And let me say something else. Chad House and the great folks, ECSHouseIndustries.com. It's harvest time, folks. It happens because of House Industries. See you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. God bless America.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.